Guys take over.
Good morning, or is it morning? Good afternoon?
Good morning.
Good morning, yeah. So, I did want to highlight really quickly, Dr. Doris asked how we were relating the heat to crime. And Dr. Shamar Collins, who is the research engineer who's helping to lead the weather station workshops and custodial program, she actually is working with the rec center to look more into that data and that research. The weather station at Liberty Tech and Rec Center, it was someone tried to take it, and so it was caught on the fence. But the weekend that they tried to take it was also regarding our heat information that we have. It was one of the hottest weekends in July, and so she's kind of working with them to look at that data and see how that's. So, DJ, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm DJ. I'm the community engagement lead for BSEC. As Darren said, I'm the guy that goes to all the events and tabling and kind of putting a face and educating people in the community as to what we do. And so what we're going to talk about today are our science education program and how that's progressed over as we've kind of gotten into it. We're talking about the weather station training program, which we were calling custodianship, but now we're changing it to weather champion to make it a little bit more community friendly. And then we'll talk about next steps and what we're planning on doing for expanding community outreach.
So we'll start off with the science education program. And I do want to highlight that this presentation you'll find is going to be more so based on the weather stations. But I know there has been engagement across theme teams. So like vegetation and soil and water quality, and some of our other theme teams have engaged residents in their own way and other projects. They've also been out in the community with us. But because the weather stations are one of the most front-facing tools that BSEC have out in the community, we want to make sure we're really working with our partners and other community members to make sure they understand what the weather station is and how they can utilize it to their benefit. So majority of this presentation will be based on the weather station and the work around that. And so since the deployment of the weather stations, we have revisited about probably maybe 15 or 20 sites over the last couple of years, going back to kind of re-engage folks and see how we can work with them to make sure they understand how to collect the data and download the data and use it to their benefit. And so we've been doing that through weather station workshops. And so we have hosted in coordination with our sites to give more discussion around sustainability and the data, how to use it, making sure everyone has the Ambient Weather Network app, and really working with them to show how they can download it for their use. The specific purpose was the operation and viewing of the weather station data being collected. So we had two types of weather station workshops. We did kickoffs, which were with organizations who either didn't have a weather station already and they were interested in hosting, or they had a weather station, but we just hadn't reached out to them in a while. We hadn't been reconnected with them since they had it. So that was a lot more information around BSEC and history of BSEC and who we are. The refreshers were for host sites that have already participated in our science education program. And so last year we hosted an education program where we went to 3 different sites and we did 3 2-hour workshops with them. And one of those workshops was hosted by the atmospheric dynamics team. And that's when they introduced the weather station and set it up there for some of the sites. And so the folks that received the education program, it was more so to kind of go back, look at the data that has been being collected at that site, and they kind of still provide the same information as a kickoff, but it was just maybe introduced differently based on their prior knowledge to the weather station. And then the folks that visited those workshops were DJ, myself, Dr. Shamar, and Darren was at a lot of those sessions as well. The science education program, when we initially started, we started with youth. And we have since expanded it to adults. And so you'll see here our group of veterans from the Ashburton community participated in the science education program this year. The first year, the theme teams that participated were vegetation and soils, water quality, and atmospheric dynamics. This year it was water quality again, atmospheric dynamics, but from a different perspective. So like I said, the first year we were installing the weather stations. This year we took folks on a field trip to the Courage site. and they saw balloon launches. And then also the air quality team. So the air quality team went in and made Corsi boxes and did presentations and different quizzes with folks. Talk to them about how we are collecting air quality data in Baltimore City.
All right, we'll switch. All right, so now we're going to talk about the Weather Champion program. This is surrounding the weather stations and our host sites. So essentially what we've done is we've gone to all of our host sites and said, hey, look, we would like to offer somebody at your site an opportunity to get paid, we're going to provide an honorarium to actually collect the data, store the data, and be able to actually analyze it for their own purposes at that site, right? So whether you're building your own garden and you want to know what the heat's going to look like or how much sun your site is getting, or whether or not you're building a cooling center for your neighborhood and you just need to collect some temperature data and figure out the humidity, right? Like we want to make sure that the sites are able to do what it is that their missions are and provide them with the means to do that using scientific data. This also provides them an opportunity to apply for grants that they may not have been able to apply for previous, using scientific data and scientific measurement equipment to make sure that everything is being represented accurately. And so we actually are starting this week, November 11th through the 21st. We've got 2 cohorts. One is going to be held on Tuesdays and one is going to be held on Sundays. And the reason for that is because we found a lot of community organizations are able to make the Tuesdays, but as we have mentioned before, we've got a lot of these at schools in Baltimore City. And so we want to make sure that the teachers are able to get involved in this. So the teachers are going to be mostly joining us on Sunday, and Mr. Donald Long, and probably we'll see him on the what's that date? The 11th, this coming the 16th, excuse me, yes. And so again, it's a $500 honorarium. It's 1 to 2 people per site, and the honorarium can be split up between the 2 people. I know that the schools have the science teachers and they've tried to bring some of their students along. So, middle school and high school students will be participating in this, may not necessarily get paid for it, but they'll still be able to actually be involved in it. And we're hoping that the schools will be able to specifically be able to teach this information to their community and to their students so that they can continue to be involved as a part of their education. Again, we do have an MOU with Baltimore City Public Schools, and so we're trying to incorporate this into their overall curriculum. I think that's about it for the championship program, right? Yep. I'll give it back over to Khalid. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's talk about why we're doing this again. It's not a transfer, right? We want to make sure that our host sites are able to continue BSEC project once BSEC has been resolved. As we all know, the funding has been cut. And so we want to make sure that all of the data is going to be able to be continuously collected, analyzed, stored, and shared for everybody involved. I know that at the Liberty Rec and Tech specifically, they have a program where they're looking to get funding for a monitor system so that they can actually display some of the data and all of the data and resources that are available to them from the weather station. So it's a way of the rec center actually being able to communicate when nobody's actually at the rec center, right? So when you're driving by, when you're attending an event, everything is going to be on a board outside, digitally displayed, easily interpreted by the people who are actually participating. And again, we're going to focus on maintenance skills. So you're going to be learning how to maintain the weather stations. Cleaning it out every couple of weeks, making sure there's no spiders and no little critters, roaming around there in the sensors. We're going to talk about understanding how the climate science actually will be transpired and how it actually affects us. We're going to talk about collecting the data. Every site is going to get a thumb drive and a notebook so that they can record information. We're also going to teach them how to use some Excel or Google Sheets to make sure that they can download and manipulate the data in the ways that they need to. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually hold a mock grant. So it'll be a kind of a thing that they're able to submit to us to determine whether or not it's okay, or if it's something that would, a grant awarding committee would, be likely to actually offer them based on the information that they've collected and the data, and we're not talking about, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're talking $500, $600, $700 grant type of things. And again, we're also going to apply this to the storytelling. We want to make sure that they're able to tell a story with the data, that even if they're not applying to the grant, they can still give to their community members so that the community understands exactly what's
So we aren't finished just yet. We are still looking to expand the weather station network with Darren. And so here this graph shows, or the pie chart shows our partner sites, and we pretty much have, I think, majority of them covered in the Weather Champion program. So we have community groups, schools, outdoor learning centers, parks, museums, university properties, private residences, and faith-based institutions. If I can recall correctly, I think from out of these, the majority of them are covered in the program. So that's good. We want to also make sure we're expanding out into South Baltimore. So we do have a station at Middle Branch Fitness Center, Masonville Cove, and we've also started to visit some of the businesses out there. It's a little bit more complex when we're working with the businesses because we have to talk to the corporate offices and whoever owns the land to see if we can work with them with deploying the weather station. But we have invited some of the folks from the businesses that we visited to join the Weather Champion program so that they're prepared to talk about the weather station and understand the benefits to businesses. And so new stakeholders that we're starting to engage are arts districts, maker spaces, corporations, and I mentioned businesses. And Baltimore A-Rappers. So if you're not familiar with the A-Rappers, those are individuals that have the fruit that walk through the community to sell the fruit. So we have had a conversation with them just about weather and climate in general. So a few of the events that we've been to throughout the year, a lot of these are recurring. We did host a BSEC Urban Climate Science Fair at Parks and People in April. We invited theme teams that were prepared to engage community members to host science demonstrations at the table. This is not a picture of that. This was actually at the Greater Baltimore Climate Summit that was on Monday. That was really great. Got a lot of good folks there. So we had the science fair earlier in the year. DJ has been at the farmers market since June up through October, sharing information. We've attended a lot of the DPW growth centers, Great Kids Farm, Parks and People open house, and different community meetings. So we've been at CARE community. We have done workshops at Roland Park, library, Filbert Street Garden. So really trying to make sure we're touching all of the stakeholders and providing them with the information, education that they need. So to kind of bring the weather station work kind of full circle, we did the deployments, we've gone back, we've done workshops, we've started the Weather Champion program to make sure folks are prepared to talk about the data. And then we also simultaneously were speaking with organizations that were hosting the weather stations on how we can make sure the broader community is also engaged with the weather stations. And so we implemented a weather station engagement toolkit. That's out on the table if you haven't gotten to see it, the sample. But we plan to print out about 50 of those to cover all of the sites and go back and redistribute them to the host sites. And then we can either offer to implement some of the activities in that toolkit, or we have it to where we have like recommendations and kind of how to host the activities to where if they're partnered with University of Maryland or US Forestry or any other environmental organization can come out and kind of do the implement the activities with them from that toolkit. We are considering hosting another science fair next year, but in partnership with Baltimore City Public Schools. We're working on an engagement story map. So if you haven't seen the flooding and heat map that the Morgan State students created, we would like to have an engagement story map similar to that, where it kind of takes you through the weather stations and including all of the engagement that the theme teams have done. So we'll be reaching out to all of you and then hoping to duplicate this engagement model across theme teams. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we really were focused on atmospheric dynamics because those were the most front-facing equipment that we had out in the community. But we do want to hopefully create maybe an engagement toolkit or work with some of the other theme teams to kind of flesh out how they've engaged folks or how we can get them engaged. So I know that there were some theme teams that had like DIY sampling kits or other tools that they could leave behind in the community. So we're hoping to work with you all to do similar work. And so that is that. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, making sure nobody has any questions. Yeah, we were just giggling over to each other, like, oh my God, this is so awesome, gotta make sure this keeps going. And I really appreciated the, workshop you were gonna do, like the mock grant. My question though is, weather is one part, we're really talking about how weather impacts people, and so are you pulling in other partners like, Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators like Alliance and their vital signs that already have done a lot of the analysis of socioeconomic information, as well as how it's changed over the years, to just kind of help them in framing up any more grants that they may be going with?
I don't think we had talked about that, but we did look at other partners and try to see what other work has currently been done in the space of actually getting the grants and what types of grants community partners may be more interested in going after. We haven't really discussed going with anybody else's, just because BSEC is not going to be around much longer, right? And so we want to make sure that we're providing all of the information and analysis from BSEC, and we'll probably add some information about other resources out there like BNIA. But we haven't discussed that just yet.
I was gonna have a question about related to the science fair. I'd be interested to hear from more people, sort of what types of projects and things, or what might be a need. Specifically thinking about the water community, air community, just what types of projects, so that I can kind of relay that information to not only my school, but also kind of district science leadership.
Yeah, so for the science fair in April, since you referenced the water quality team, they did water infiltration tests outside in the green space that's on Parks and People. They also did some activities at their table. I cannot remember what activity was at the table, but I know they were taking people outside. And the vegetation and soil team had different soils at their table, but they do have like deep core sampling tools and other types of tools that they use to take samples. When it comes to the science fair for the schools, we were more so thinking to kind of incorporate it into existing science fairs. So we know that some of the schools host fairs for the youth, having the researchers maybe go out, whoever is available, to kind of either do demonstrations as well, or just kind of create the opportunity for researchers to, engage with the students. So, but we can talk to you more after this to see.
Invitation for everybody, so I want to hear more like what kinds of community-based projects would, be beneficial.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation and thank you for your work. One question is regarding the program next week, but are you still working inside?
It's still open. Right?
I believe it's still open. Yeah. Yeah. It's always open. Well, as long as we exist, it will be open. Yeah. Do you have are you at a site with the weather station? Okay. Okay. Yeah. We come see us after this and we'll get your information, and yeah, we appreciate that. Yes, ma'am. Hi. Okay.
I wanted to see your presentation because I know valuable is value. Not that much, but some valuable to the internet, watching the program. Just being a nosy neighbor, you can get the children. I can use it. And so I'm so glad that I made it, but I got put up with it. That was raising your hand. Oh, man, so that would be fun.
All I saw was a hand going. I'm sorry.
I understand what's environment and how the air itself is the blood. And we have to think about the babies. We have to think about the little children running around elementary school. The nasty ones, germs and everything. And they're innocent teachers. But at 75 years old, I'm down real hard. Done. Thank you very much. Leah Redmond, East Baltimore Historical Library.
Thank you. That's it. No more questions. Thank you.
All right,
Good
you better
event.
find these guys. Thank you both. Great. All right. Through some kind of divine intervention, we are on time. And so we're gonna take a break for lunch now, just to preview for the rest of the day, right? So hopefully this has been interesting. Really appreciate all of your attention and engagement. I know we've done a lot of talking at you, right? And so after lunch, which is gonna be a time for us all to talk amongst ourselves, we're gonna come back in here and hear a little bit from, I think, Lisa or Hong or someone's gonna, I guess, kick us off into the breakout rooms. Or not. Somebody will be up here explaining the breakout rooms. There'll only be 2 breakout rooms, right? There's gonna be talking about energy, right? Energy security, addressing energy poverty, thinking about decarbonization in Baltimore. And I think that one's probably gonna be stay in this room. And the other one, we're gonna use the classroom next door to talk about indoor air quality, pollution in the home, how we're addressing that. And that's gonna be really, for us, the most vital part of this, right? To hear from each other about how we should move forward. So please, there's lunch out there, go enjoy. I think it's still beautiful outside, so get some fresh air. And there's no fire in the neighborhood today for a change. So it is fresh. And then we're gonna get people back at around 1 o'clock. Thanks all. Yeah.
Where do you want me to begin those breakout rooms? The first one actually is very like.
Yeah. I'd assume that would be the one that you're most interested in.
Then there is like a demand response one. Is that the?
That's sorry, that's part of that first one. So I'm just putting in general terms of answer, that's the demand response, yeah. And do you know Trishan? Have you guys met in person yet?
I don't know.
Ran from BGE, Trishan, yeah, you know, from Penn State, yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah.
Let me just find out.
Yeah, did you already put it out there yet? No, you can email us, we were easier.
No,
We haven't seen us up here. Okay, so if you wanna just,
It's just a normal Google share folder, just a browser between this.
yeah, there is the fall,
Oh, yeah.
BSEC meetings, fall community meeting.
Okay.
Presentations, we can connect.
Okay, so I'm gonna do an overview and then I will fill in my area or something. But one of my colleagues of mine, I think it's fine for him to present it. And then as soon as he is.
Right. Hey, sorry to get that wrong. I just realized we never talked about, it's just like 5 minutes of like, hey, everybody, here's what we're doing. Doesn't have to be.
So I think I was talking to him, I think excellent.
That's what I just said.
2 weeks ago.
It's just, I mean, I thought that we wanted to like talk in general about the process, but we're not, then we could just start to write like, hey, straight.
If we have time, maybe chat.
I mean, that's
We could, I mean, also it's easy.
I'll coordinate with Sonia as well as.
Yeah.
And then, we'll go.
I am not.
Yeah, this one, yes. Yeah, so the IRB wants people signing as they came in, so we can make sure that the IRB forms, we decided, it's not having to sign it, when actually get a chance to read it, so it's better to do it. Just sign off on it, just right under the table out front.
Okay.
I figure it's really only that sign.
Right, yeah.
Maybe we can discuss what kind of search topic you're interested in.
Want to read that to everyone while we're in the same.
Yeah.
And then when we go into the individual rooms, we can have them as they come in. Okay.
Great, cool, thank you.
Yes.
For this particular project, we utilize this restaurant and the council, and then make it all improvement